So now we are up to the 13th principle, the last principle, which is very exciting. We finally made it all the way to the end. The last principle is the belief in the resurrection of the dead. It is very, very interesting that the Rambam considers the belief in the resurrection. You hear me? Do you hear me? Hello? Do you hear me?
Only a little bit.
We do hear you, Rabbi. We hear you.
We hear you.
He says a little bit, so I don't know what to do. Terry, listen, it's gonna be very exciting. Listen, the Rambam says the belief in the resurrection of the dead is a foundation in the entire religion. If we don't have this foundation, you don't have the religion. The question is, why is this a foundation in the Jewish religion? So let me explain this. It's very interesting. If there wasn't such a thing as resurrection of the dead, then we got a major problem. The problem is we are taught in the Torah that all the mitzvahs that we do sanctify our body. Every mitzvah makes our body more kadosh. However, if once a person leaves this world, let's say we hope to live for 120 years, but then it's over, then what's the whole point? You're making something holy that's only going to last for 120 years. This is a major problem. However, because we believe in the resurrection of the dead, that our body is going to be rebuilt and reconstructed and be here on this world forever, because we follow the opinion of Nachmanides that once there'll be the resurrection of the dead, there won't be no death anymore. We will live forever on earth. And every mitzvah that we do now is going to have a permanent effect in our body. This is an incredible investment. What every mitzvah that we do makes a major difference in our body. Now we don't see it because we're not yet on a level to feel it or see it. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a major change, and that change is going to be obvious and helpful forever. So this is why, if we wouldn't have believed in resurrection of the dead, then there's a major problem. What's the point? We're not, like, God forbid, that there are people who use the terminology, he's gone or she's gone. There's no such a thing as gone. Your soul anyway lives forever. But the question was, but what about the body? The whole purpose of mitzvahs is to make this world and to make our body a holy body. If the body is going to be gone, become decomposed, and it's going to fade away. So it's a very temporary thing. So this is why we have to understand that the Torah tells us, no, your beautiful body now is going to be resurrected. Interesting, I'm still going to explain how it works and everything, but just first understand why resurrection of the dead is essential in the Jewish religion. And every day, 3 times a day, if it's Rosh Hashanah, if it's Yom Kippur, if it's Sukkot, Chanukah, there's never a prayer, no prayer of Shmoneh Esrei, any time of the year, that we don't specifically say, we believe you, God, we trust you, God, that you're going to resurrect the dead. Why do we have to say it 3 times a day? Because without this, we have nothing. Now, let me try to explain what does it say in mysticism, in Kabbalah, and explained in Hasidus, the whole idea of resurrection of the dead. As I mentioned in previous shiurim, that Hashem is going to reward us, to reward the soul and the body, because you cannot do mitzvahs without your body. So just by going to Gan Eden, that's just for the soul. But the main reward is for mitzvahs, and what about the body? So that's exactly what the point is, that when there'll be the resurrection of the dead, it's going to be the most incredible spiritual life, godly life, and our body is going to shine to such an extent, as we're going to get to a little later, that the soul is going to want to be in the body, because the body has something that the soul does not have. And we'll get to this a little later. Now, what does it say? It says in the Gemara that when there'll be the resurrection of the dead, we are going to be resurrected as a 20-year-old. I know Moshe now has a long white beard, but when the time of resurrection is going to happen, you're going to have a black beard, because you're going to be like a 20-year-old man.
I have to get used to it.
Well, I'm sure that that's not going to be a problem. Now, it is the most miraculous miracle to resurrect the dead, and we should have back our body with our neshama and live a life that we won't need to eat, we won't have to drink. We're going to live off godliness. We're going to be spiritual beings, but in the physical world. In mysticism, it explains that there's a little bone. According to many opinions, this little bone is in the back of the neck, where we have the knot of the tefillin, and the name of this bone is called Luz bone, L-U-Z. That little bone never decomposes. That little bone, no matter 1,000 years, 4,000 years, that teeny little bone never gets decomposed. And therefore, from that little bone, God will reconstruct our body. Why doesn't that little bone get decomposed? So perhaps we mentioned this before, that the only reason there was death is a result of the sin of the Chet Eitz Hadas. Because Adam and Chava ate from the tree of knowledge, so they accumulated in their body impurity And everybody who comes from Adam and Eve, we have that impurity. So what did Hashem say? There's no way how that impurity will leave our body unless we have to go back into the ground. And this is like reconstructing. The whole body has to be cleansed and rebuilt again to get rid of the impurity of this tree of the tree of Eitz Hadas. So death is not a punishment like to get even with anybody, but like every punishment, it's always a cleansing. So here too, death is only a temporary thing because we believe in resurrection of the dead. So death is a temporary state where the body has to become decomposed and become a part of the ground. And then once it goes through the ground, it becomes a new kind of a body that got rid of the impurity of the Eitz Hadas. However, there's one little bone, which is the loose bone, that never benefits from food. And therefore, that little bone never got contaminated from the Eitz Hadas. Adam and Chava's loose bone did not benefit from the Eitz Hadas because it doesn't live off food. If it doesn't live off food and didn't benefit from the tree of knowledge, then there's no reason for it to be decomposed. So that's why automatically that bone always remains. So therefore, being that there is still a trace of the person, or call it the essence of the person, in the loose bone, so it's very interesting that it'll come out that the little bone never dies. Very interesting. So there is something about this little loose, that the loose is alive till the time of resurrection, and then the whole body gets reconstructed. Interesting to note, we don't need to get into it now, that the only time that the loose bone derives nourishment is from the meal of Malava Malka. Very interesting. A lot of things about the Malava Malka meal that is associated to Mashiach, and in mysticism it says, in Kabbalah it says that the loose bone benefits from the meal of Malava Malka. Now, before we go into different questions and different issues, we need to understand that the body has in itself something greater even than our neshama. How is that? How could it be that a physical body can be, in a certain sense, even holier than the soul? So it is a very deep concept, but I'm sure you will understand it and appreciate it. The Jewish people are not only called God's children, firstborn child, only child. The Jews have another title, and that title began by Matan Torah. At Matan Torah, when God revealed himself at Sinai, he chose the Jewish people. They are now not only children, they became the chosen nation. Why do we need to be chosen? We are already an only child of God. What could be more? And why does he need to choose us? There's no choice. If one is a child of the rest of the nations, so what does it mean? He chose us. This is a very deep concept. God himself, everything that he does it only because he chooses to do so. There's nothing he has to do. Nothing, no reason, no idea has any significance to the infinite God. When you say choosing usually means when two things are seemingly identical, and yet you choose one over the other, then you could say, I chose it. But when you have someone brings you a bowl of fruit, you come into someone's house and they offer you a bowl of fruit, apples and oranges and pears and bananas. You can't really, if you really would like an apple, or you like a banana, or you prefer a grape, you can't say you chose it. Why? Because it's not a choice. An apple tastes different than a grape, and it tastes different than a lemon. So if you like at that moment that fruit, you didn't choose it. You selected that particular thing for that particular taste. When would it even make sense to say the word choice if, let's say, it would be all apples and they all look alike and they're all gorgeous apples, and yet you pick one out of everyone? Oh, I chose it. So in our world, we can't really make any choices because everything is different than something else. And if you prefer something for that particular thing, then you have no choice but picking that thing because everything is different. Not random choice, but to God, everything is equal. Nothing has a value over something else. In his greatness, everything is equal. To say that the Jewish people, because they're children, that's still a lower level. That's God, the way he relates to us as a father. But God himself, that's the great depth that the Jews became the chosen people. That even in the essence of God, where everything should be equal, because nothing has any value over another thing. And yet, he said, no, I'm choosing the Jewish people. So the fact that the Jews are called chosen people is the greatest thing that you could say about a Jew. Because to say we're children, which is true, we call Hashem Father and he calls us child, but it's still a finite relationship. But when you say he connected himself to us, where he is beyond any limitation, where everything is equal and everything is insignificant, and he chooses, no, they are significant, then the significance is an infinite one. And therefore, another point, if it was not based on a reason, not based on anything. It's based on him himself. He chose. Then you could never lose it. No matter what you do, you could stand on your head and spit nickels. You could, God forbid, violate all the laws in the Torah. You're still chosen because he didn't choose you because of your looks, because of your conduct, because of anything. It's based on him. So you never could lose it. So when we say we are the chosen people, there's nothing more stronger, greater than saying that we were chosen from a level where everything is equal, and yet God says, no, I'm choosing the Jewish people. And that happened by Matan Torah. Now, here comes the punchline. Comes Hasidus. You ready for this? Hasidus says, when God chose the Jewish people, what did he choose? He didn't choose the Jewish soul. He chose the Jewish body. Why? Because the soul has merits over a non-Jew. It's not even close. So he chose the soul. The soul is not equal in the first place. If choosing means everything is equal, and yet you choose, the soul has tremendous advantages. So where is the main choosing that God chose? The body. The body of a Jew looks exactly like the non-Jewish body. And yet, God said, no, I am choosing the body. Wow, that means that the body is more connected to God himself than even the soul, because the body is what was chosen. If you get what I'm saying, now we learn, and Hasidus says that when the resurrection of the dead will take place, the body is going to give to the soul what the soul doesn't have. The body is a chosen. The soul is not chosen. So the soul is going to want to stay alive in the body forever. It doesn't have where to go in any better place. He needs the body. The body is the chosen of God. This is radical. This is unbelievable that the body is greater than the soul. This is not too known. This is only in the Hasidus. In general, we do know that the body is the property of God. We also know that the body is, this is common to all Jews, that the body is like Aron Kodesh for the neshama, because the body housed the soul, so we respect the Jewish body. But today, now we're learning something else. It's not just that the body is housing the soul, like the Aron Kodesh in the shul. No, the body itself has something incredible that the neshama does not have. And the neshama is going to want to stay in the body forever, because it's going to be even closer to God because of the body. This is very, very interesting. I hope it's a whole different look to understand the resurrection of the dead. Now, there's one of the questions that I hope you had in mind to ask. If we learned about resurrection of the dead, and we learned about reincarnation, that we could come down many times, chances are that we were here many times because we have to fulfill all of the mitzvahs and not everybody gets to fulfill all of the mitzvahs in one round. So the question is now, which body gets resurrected? You understand the question, Chaim and Moshe? If we believe in resurrection of the dead and we believe in reincarnation, so which body gets up? And the answer is, they all get up. Every soul that was in a body will get up. How? Because the soul itself has 613 parts of the soul. Not only does the body have 613 products, there's 365 limbs, there's 248 limbs and 365 organs, corresponding to the 613 mitzvahs. But what's interesting, what we're learning now, is that the neshama itself is also made up of 613 levels. Every time a person comes down on this world, and every time you could be sure that they're doing certain mitzvahs. They didn't do all the mitzvahs, if they didn't do half of the mitzvahs, but you get to do something right. Being that you did some mitzvahs that correspond to those parts of your soul, thank you very much, to the certain parts of your soul, then that part of the neshama that corresponds to those mitzvahs break off and become the soul for that body. So you can have maybe 10 times you're here in this world. And every time that you're here, there's somebody keeping score. There's a very good software program upstairs. And every time you're here, there are certain mitzvahs that you do properly that become the soul of that body. So very good chance that when there'll come the time of resurrection of the dead, all the neshamas that went into different bodies are going to be related. It's the same soul broken down. But what's interesting is that every time you're here, those mitzvahs that you did do properly become the soul of that body. And that body will be resurrected. And again, the next body will be resurrected with other mitzvahs that correspond to that part of the mitzvahs. So this is a very, very interesting thing, that we all are going to be resurrected. And we say this in the Mishnah, in Pirkei Avot. We start off Pirkei Avot. It's not a part of Pirkei Avot, but that's an introduction before we learn Pirkei Avot. It's a Mishnah in Sanhedrin, in the last chelik of Masechta Sanhedrin. The Mishnah states, Kol Yisrael, every Jew will have a portion in Olam Haba. And this time, Olam Haba means the time of the resurrection of the dead. Why does it say Kol Yisrael? Because that's exactly the every Jew who came down on this world did some mitzvahs, and therefore he deserves to get a reward with his body, and he's going to be resurrected at the time of the resurrection. We do need to clarify that the Mishnah states in Sanhedrin that there are a few exceptions of people who do not get resurrected. One of them, if somebody doesn't believe in the resurrection of the dead, then heaven forbid then they don't get up to resurrection of the dead. However, I must say that majority of Jews today never heard of resurrection of the dead. And to them, this sounds like, God forbid, a Christian concept. So people who today say, I don't believe in it, that's not called not believing. You were never brought up that this is true. You never heard of it. So when you hear it for the first time, you think it comes from a different religion. When the Mishnah is talking that people who don't believe in the resurrection of the dead, we're talking about people who grew up knowing, and then they decided they don't believe. But today, you can't even call people today, you can't call them a heretic. They're just ignorance. It's ignoramuses. That's not called not believing. If I'd never learned medicine, and I walk into a drugstore, and I make a statement, all of these medicines is full of baloney. Do I have a right to say that? I don't even know anything about medicine. I never studied medicine. I don't know what this, that's today, if a person says, I don't believe, that's not called you don't believe. You don't have a clue in the first place. You never were brought up that the Torah is from God, and whatever it says is true. You never brought up that way. So if you say, I don't believe, that's not called you don't believe. You just don't even know. You're just uninformed. But what I do want to say, even the people where the Mishnah says that they will not be resurrected, the Rabbi states clearly, he wrote a whole pamphlet on this, and he writes there's still hope for them too. That body, when they were on this world, and they didn't believe, let's say, in the resurrection of the dead, that body is not going to be resurrected. But the soul will go into another body. God will arrange that, and they'll be resurrected. In other words, even a person, the lowest of the lowest, where it says that he will not be resurrected, it meant that body. But the neshama always has a hope. No soul will ever be pushed away. So God will arrange that even that neshama will enter into a different body, and will come the time of resurrection of the dead, will be resurrected with that body. So in conclusion, we started from the first principle, the first foundation. And now we're concluding. It's all very, very systematic. We're going from the rock bottom to the ultimate reward of mankind. The ultimate, of course, we have to do mitzvahs, but what's the ultimate? The ultimate will be that these mitzvahs that we have done, with the belief in God and belief in His unity and belief in all the things we learned, what will be the end? That we will live on this physical world, which is God's favorite place. This is His condominium. There's nothing more dear to God than this physical world. This world will become the holiest world than any spiritual world that exists. This is so interesting. The physical world is going to become the holiest level of godliness. And we'll all see each other when that happens. Everyone should be blessed. By you, it's Purim Katan. It's a very happy Yontif. The Shulchan Aruch ends with these laws. The whole Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim ends with the laws of Purim Katan, and the last words of the Shulchan Aruch, speaking about Purim Katan, ends with the pasuk V'toiv leiv mishta tamid, that a happy heart celebrates constantly. And what this really is, the message is that the first halacha in the Shulchan Aruch also has a word tamid. The first word says Shivisi Hashem. A person is always has to imagine that Hashem is right in front of him. Tamid. So the first sentence in the Shulchan Aruch begins with Tamid, and the last sentence in the Shulchan Aruch is about being happy Tamid. So these two Tamids, it's not by coincidence. There's always a connection between the way beginning and the way end. We need to always have these two Tamids with us. But we have God with us all the time, never alone. We have the best thing that it could be. We always have it with us. And that is the cause of always being happy, because we know that we have the greatest what can be, we have with us. Everyone should be blessed and have a good day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Chaim. Did I lose Terry?
Yeah, she's right here. She's right
Hi,
here.
my daughter, like, tell her. It's
No.
You should be blessed and be happy.
Hi, Rabbi. Thank
All the best to you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
you so much for the class. I really like it.
You're welcome. Hopefully it's going to be on a tape, and hopefully it's going to be made that people could hear it whenever they like. It's very important. These are the foundations of the religion. So we got to always stay tuned with it. Sei gesund.
All right, Rabbi, take care.
Bye-bye.
All the best.